Alright, so here's a dual amp patch, and hopefully it inspires you to create dual amp patches. There's two amplifiers, a Cali Rhythm 2, which is a Mark IV Mesa Boogie crunch channel, which is kind of clean all the way up to kind of a compressed crunch rhythm sound. And a US Deluxe, which has a nice top end but a scoopy sound to it. Both of them kind of at the edge of breakup. Here they are together. I've got equalizers at the end that give a little bit of mid boost and take a little bit of the top end off. Not a very aggressive cut. They are on totally independent channels, and at the end of each block I have controller assignments connected to the expression pedal, and you can see them moving back and forth here, where I create a stereo spread. So here they are completely separated in stereo. And then mono. I like it a little bit in stereo, but just enough summed together to make them blend and sound nicely together. Also, the levels have to change as you go up and down here, because when you start to sum to mono, you get an increase in the perceived level of volume. So we just kind of fixed that up a little bit as well. Now, in general, the top line here is more about the mids and the low mids, and then the bottom amp, the Fender amp, is a little bit more about the top end. So the first interesting thing about this is that you'll see that in the top row and in the bottom row there is a controller called amp drive. So I have two foot switches that say amp drive, the top one for the top amp, the bottom one for the bottom amp. And you'll see with the brackets that there's controller assignments around the drive levels. So as I click that button, you see that the drive right here changes on the Deluxe. And the same thing goes for the Mesa. So that gives you two totally different flavors of amps. Here they are kind of on the cleaner settings. And here they are both on the drive setting. That's the neck pickup. This is the bridge pickup. Alright, so you have two amps sounds to start with. You can combine them, you can separate them. That's the beauty of the patch. On the distortion side, each channel gets one distortion that's its own. So I selected these and set them up just to sound good with the amp that it is connected to. So here's the Minotaur on the Fender. Off. On. Here's the KWB on the Mesa. And of course both of them on. All right. Now, next to them, I've got two Tube Screamer-like pedals. On the bottom, an actual Tube Screamer, and on the top, the Hedgehog D9 or the Maxon. The bottom one has a lot more of a mid-hump, which is great going into a Fender, but I have them on one foot switch. So they both turn on and off at the same time. So I get that mid-punch with both or none. Pretty cool. So moving on from the distortion, same thing on the delay side. I can control these delays separately, and they're the same model, so they're both kind of that Echoplex model, but they each have a different timing. So the bottom one, a little bit faster. The top one a little bit slower and syncopated. If I put them in total stereo, it gives you a nice ping pong effect. And the reverb as well, one foot switch turns them both on or off, and they're set essentially the same way. Spring on the top, spring on the bottom, one with just a little bit of pre-delay to separate the two amps a little bit even when you're in mono. So the last little thing here is I've got a script mod just on one of them, which is nice because it just gives a little bit of flavor of a phaser. And it gets a little muddy anyway going into the mesa, so it sounds nice, and it just gives you a little bit of a mod thing going on. So let's just roll through these snapshots that I set. So cleanest basically has no delay, and everything is kind of on its lowest gain settings. But you can still get it going if you dig in. Chime drive. So the next two kind of have two things happening in opposite. I've got the distortion or overdrive effect here on the mesa and the actual amp driven on the deluxe, and this gives you kind of a chimier top end sound. Where dark drive does just the opposite. It puts the overdrive or the Minotaur here on the Fender and boosts up the mesa drive, and it is definitely a more MIDI low mid sound. Go A-B back and forth to them. Both very useful sound. Ambient keeps everything on the clean side, puts the delays on, and adds that script mod, which you can just click off with your foot if you don't want to. Here we've got all the distortions on, plus the amps both driven. The only thing that's not on is this KWB, which just doesn't seem to play well going into all the other high gain stuff. Wet Balls adds a delay to that. Kitchen sink. If you really, really, really want everything on, here it is. I actually like this one, bone dry. Alright, that is Dual Amp. Hope you like the patch. Enjoy playing. Take care of each other. Happy guitaring. Until next time, goodbye.